because you float. That in itself is something to admire. As we know, the world tries to sink us. But you, cheerfully and tough, you carry us over the water. As you act as a bumper when we get too close to a rock, to a wall, to a log. I wish I could do what you do. Surround us with support. Make it fun. Slip us into the flow so easily, and we can't help but laugh, even as our hearts thump wild in our chests. You are likely asking yourself, what is she talking about? Let me give you a few more clues. I can be round, heart-shaped, animal-shaped, and even flat. I can be used by one person, two people, or sometimes many people. I can be plain. I can have handles, or even have a place for a beverage. I can be used in a car, a bike, a motorcycle, or anything with wheels, but I can also be used on water. What am I? You guys are laughing. I'm a floating inner tube. Did you get that? All right. Well, then I did good. Ruthe got it. Yay! That's the one that I wanted to get it. We as a society have been living in a strange and unpredictable world these last months. I sit today with a few of Cora's family members, but most of you joining via Zoom. This is not the traditional way of honoring a life loss, but Cora was not much about the traditional person. She was all about adventure. And I guess we could say these last few months have definitely been an adventure. My name is Jean Brigham. I'm a life tribute specialist with Ballard-Sunder Funeral Cremation, and it is an honor to be with you today. One of the things we do when we lose a treasure such as Cora is to establish the significance that she was to us. We first think on what losing her to each of us was, and then we begin collecting all the thoughts and memories of her so that we may hold her closer in our hearts. And to Doug, Dan, and Carrie and the rest of the family, let me express to you that we are gathered here today to embrace you with love and to also share with you at this time when your hearts are so filled with so much emotion. Cora was all about adventure and having a good time. So we're gathered to honor her now. Why should this be any different? Let's put the fun into funeral. Just a moment ago, you got it. Aha, I was listening the other night, wasn't I? Just a moment ago, I described to you an inner tube. For some of you may be asking yourself, what does this have to do with Cora? Well, she loved the water, despite her never being able to swim. Cora savored floating in the inner tube and soaking up the sun. She would secure the tube tightly to the dock with a rope, strategically placing herself carefully into the tube, but making sure the deflated air mattress covered the center hole so that the sunfish couldn't bite her butt. And off she would go, floating in the water as far as the rope would allow her. This sounds like quite a production, but it worked for Cora. To better tell Cora's story, I have asked my colleague Sue to assist me. Yes, with an inner tube and rope. Ready to go floating? Imagine Cora standing at the end of the dock. She takes the rope and ties it to the tube. Let's think of this rope being her family. Cora Jane was first a daughter to George and Elizabeth Opp, born on May 30th, 1932 in North Dakota. She eventually became a sister to 3 brothers and 5 sisters, growing up in Ada, Minnesota, and later in Lincoln, Nebraska. Cora later married her high school sweetheart, Sydney, on November 25th, 1950, during a double wedding of her closest sister, Ruthe, and her new husband, Jim Mason. In the following years, Cora also became a mother to 3 precious children. Maybe I should go easy on the precious part when talking about the 2 boys and go heavy on the precious with Carrie. Yes, there we go. See, guys, I was listening the other night. Right, boys? Okay. After these 3 rugrats grew up and ventured off, Cora also became a grandma to 5 amazing, and let me restate, 5 amazing granddaughters: Lauren, Carrie, Amanda, Brooke, and Emily. Yes, she was also an aunt and a cousin too. But at the end of the day, and after all of life's adventures, family was most important to Cora. So think of this rope being her main source of support, guidance, and love. And in our story, her main source of tightly being secured to the dock. Cora was also a gal ahead of her times, and when you tell her she can't do something, watch out, Cora's gonna prove you wrong. Well, Sid's family was into Morse code and ham radios. Now, for those who don't know what an amateur ham radio operator is, this is a person, is like a phone bridge for people to remain connected all over the world, and especially for those in the military. So back in the day, in 1950s, and before she had children, Cora took on a challenge from Sid. He was in the process of getting his ham radio license to follow in his family's footsteps, and he must have said something like, "You can't be one." Well, let's speed up the story. Guess who got the license first? It wasn't Sid. There's only 2 options, so yes, Cora got it. In Lincoln, her call letters were K0OBX, and when Cora and Sid moved, her call letters became WZLYN for the LYN, love your neighbor. She loved this form of technology, keeping people connected all over the world. Nowadays, we have all sorts of technology: cell phones, internet, smart everything, smart TVs, smart thermostats, doorbells, and the list goes on. I am calling this her communicator rope. Our next rope is the composer rope, representing Cora's desires in connecting to those she loved. Through the years, she wrote countless letters, keeping her children, relatives, and lifelong friends informed as to what was going on in life. Cora would take her spiral college-lined notebook, sit down at the kitchen table, and at times would be up until well into the early morning hours, composing the letters, or should I say, writing down the bones, the stories of her life. The letters would include topics of the weather, what's going on in the kids' life, what tasks were tackled for the day, news about other relatives, and any other topic worth sharing, and even a play-by-play as far as what was happening that very moment she was writing the letter. Oh, the phone rang and it was so-and-so. The kids would tease her, "Mom, why don't you just use carbon copy the letter and send it out to everyone?" The response would be a fast no. Even though each letter likely contained the same information, but just wrote a bit different. Some letters could be 3, 4, 5 pages long and on both sides, so the task was never easy. At the same time, she knew the recipient would enjoy receiving the letters and to look forward in reading them. Cora's day-to-day stories are fun and funny because she found joy in the things she did. Our fourth rope represents Cora as an educator. She graduated from Lincoln High School in Lincoln, Nebraska. No, she did not further a college education, nor did she become a school teacher. Again, advanced in her times for her age, Cora made sure that her children's minds were always being challenged. Well, at least through the second or third grade, when some of the kids' studies, were beyond her education. Thinking about it with our current world situation, I'm sure there are a lot of parents nowadays are finding themselves in the position of being challenged beyond their means. Anyway, back to Cora. There were many road trips through the years, driving from Minnesota to Nebraska. Cora would pack up the car and off they would go. Sid in the driver's seat, Doug as the co-pilot because he was the oldest, and Mom in the back seat and on the hump, for God's sakes, just so she could keep peace in between Dan and Carrie. She also had the responsibility of keeping Sid's coffee cup full and sandwiches dispensed. Now, keep in mind the drive between Minnesota and Nebraska was about 8 hours, so round trip, 16 hours with 3 antsy kids. Also, the other tidbit about this road trip is that Sid only stopped once in Story City, Iowa, kind of that halfway point. So Cora had to make sure there wasn't too much liquid consumed by those kids because he was not stopping. Okay, more back to the educator part. Sorry, I get off on some details. The task at hand was to keep those kids entertained and most of all, their minds sharp. Cora would pack up all sorts of phonics books and other educational tools. She would also play I Spy and Auto Bingo to fill in the time. Cora always had her children's best interest in mind. So our next rope, cheerleader. Cora was always active in her children's lives. She was their biggest cheerleader. Even if it meant the kids' times was spent sitting on the bench, it didn't matter. Cora was always going to be present. She went to every parent-teacher conference, and I'm sure she had her hands full with those boys and their shenanigans. Every choir concert, the heads are going yes. Carrie's Doug's is not doing anything. Every choir concert, National Honor Society gathering, and sporting event. Yes, Cora was the kids' biggest cheerleader, but she was also the referee, especially between Doug and Dan. We could sit here for hours and tell stories about these two, but I want to focus on one particular story. Okay? Now picture Doug and Dan in high school, standing, about 6 foot plus and around 200 pounds. And here's Cora, 4'11", and 100 pounds, about soaking wet. So who do you think had the upper edge? Well, a disagreement broke out between Doug and Dan. Punches were thrown, a chase began around the house, and pool cues were grabbed as used for swords. Cora came running in with her arms extended upward, trying to break up the fight, with her hands probably touching the boys' chins. Well, Doug literally put his hand out, his long arm, placed it on her head. Are you keeping up with the visuals? Long arm, Doug, Mom. Because of the height difference, there stood Mom swinging really hard towards Doug, and all she was connecting was air. The boys quickly began laughing really hard at their mom, and the fight was dropped. Well, the way I look at it, Doug, you may have had the upper hand for a bit, but in this case, Mom did once again, for she got the two of you, Dan, to stop fighting. Now think about that angle for a bit. Hostess rope. Cora was such a gracious host and loved entertaining. Her home was always open to family and especially friends. Sid would bring home work visitors from all over the world. And we must not forget their ham radio guests from Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and countless other countries. Cora made sure everyone had a great time when they were at her home. If the weather was right, Sid, Cora, and the guests enjoyed a pontoon ride around the lake, and the day would end with good food. Cora's home was not just open to world travelers. Most of the time, it was filled with her extended children, Doug, Dan, and Carrie's friends. Cora's policy was walk in and help yourself. This is your home too. She truly enjoyed being everybody's second mom. The District 719 rope. Cora loved being a wife and mother, but as the kids grew up and the days became long for her while they were at school, wanting a little bit more to her day, Cora snuck behind Sid's back and accepted a position as school lunch ticket taker for the Prairie Lake School District 719. This allowed her to see the kids off to school and would be home as they returned. Well, a few weeks went by and Sid had no idea what was going on and that there was a little extra money in the checkbook. Cora finally caved in and said to Sid, "This is what I'm doing." And to Sid, he didn't care. Cora started moving up the ladder and became a cook. One of her privileges is having access to recipes. Now the task for Cora was to take a recipe that feeds 300 people and bring it down to a family size. This was no easy task. Now, take the recipe that calls for 20 pounds of peanut butter. What does that mean? She needed to do some definitely math skills to test. But with time and a few tweaks to the recipe, Cora succeeded. In the end, everything went well for Cora. She loved interacting with the kids, especially since she was a kid at heart. She did not mind the extra money, and the kids were able to enjoy the District 17, or as Dan would say, the Pioneer Bars, anytime in the comforts of their own home. So it was a win-win for everyone. Ah, yes, the Brookdale Senior Living Rope. Cora spent the last decade at Brookdale Senior Living. She made so many wonderful friends there. She was always engaged with the residents. Cora could be found sitting in the town hall with her eyes always towards the door to make sure she knew who was coming and going. Or in the living room with her nose in a word find book. Sometimes Cora was so focused on that word find that she didn't realize that one of her kids would come in, sit down next to her, and they would actually help her find the words. And she would eventually, a few words into it, would go, "Oh!" Realize that one of them was sitting next to her. She would get so excited. Cora enjoyed getting out occasionally to visit family. She would always ask, "Well, how far to Ruthe's house?" Or "How far to Doug's house?" The response, "We'll be there in 20 minutes. On the ride home, the same question would be asked with the same response. "We'll be back in 20 minutes. It became the running joke for the family, but in Cora's defense, as her memory declined, she always remained positive, happy, and was always on a 20-minute amazing adventure. Our next rope is about Cora, who she was. Cora loved swing music and dancing with Sid. She loved being the center of attention, even if it was somebody else's party that they should have been the center of attention. Nope, it was about Cora. Cora had a gift of gab, which is a trait of the Opp family. Okay, yeah. Ruth is shaking her head, yes, and even held up her hand. Back in the day, she loved watching the Merv Griffin show, The Saint and Truth or Consequences. Cora was smart, devious. She remained positive and determined. Cora walked through life with glimmer in her eyes and mischief in her smile. It is our last rope, but I really want you to consider this rope our lifeline to her. Cora has taught you so much in life. Now you are left with those precious memories that you will carry with you forever. Doug, Dan, and Carrie, she will always be your mom. I know she is proud of who you've become. But also, next Easter, look for those Easter bunny tracks. And where he might have hid your Easter basket, according to Cora, you're never too old, right, Dan? Lauren, Carrie, Amanda, Brooke, and Emily. She will always be your grandma. She will always be your measuring stick. And remember, just because you're taller than her now, you still need to respect your elders. And to Ruthe, Cora will be your other half and your partner in crime. The passing of Cora will forever change you. And now, sitting in this special place at this sacred moment are the people who will miss her forever. They will miss her wit, her strength, her guidance, her smile, and that great sense of humor. You now are her future and her memories. Be kind and patient with one another. Hold each other during those difficult times, the holidays, the birthdays, the times when you miss her most as a mom, a grandma, a sister, an aunt, cousin, and friend. And talking with Doug and Dan and Carrie the other night, we laughed. We cried for almost 2 hours telling stories about Mom. You wanted to celebrate her life today and all that she was to everyone. I'm sure Mom wants you to continue moving forward, and think of her saying this to you. Celebrate my life. Remember me with love and joy. Let gratitude fill your heart. Thank you for the time we had, gone, yet not far apart. If we measured life in moments, not in months and years, I have lived 100 lifetimes, loved by all who hold me dear. I hope you'll find your smile and generously speak my name. Share stories in my heart and your love for life unchanged. Celebrate the life I lived. I'll be watching from above. I will always be with you, sending you my light and my love. It's been an honor to walk with you in this journey, recalling the amazing and adventurous life of Cora. Now it's your task to continue living on those memories and sharing those memories. This concludes our time together. I want to thank everyone who joined us via Zoom and taking time out of your day to be with us in spirit. As we close, we'll listen to another one of Cora's favorite songs to dance to, and it's In the Mood by Glenn Miller. For those joining us via Zoom, if you have time today, listen to it and even shake a leg in her honor. I think that's what we're going to do in just a moment. Cora, may your adventure continue in heaven, and we look forward to hearing about all those amazing times in good time.
Thank you again to everyone who's joining us via Zoom. We will stay connected, and in just a few moments, I will start the video tribute for everyone to get to watch that, who wants to stay connected and be a part of that. I'm just going to mute for the moment while I get everything set up, but we'll be sharing our video and audio again. Actually, just our video for the video tribute here in just a moment. Thank you. I just want to say thank you again to everyone who joined us remotely. That will conclude our service. Thanks again for helping us to celebrate Cora.